Whether you're watching your favorite NBA team at the arena, the bar, or hanging at home, grab an ice-cold Michelob Ultra and enjoy every moment of the NBA season. Stock up today and watch your team drop buckets with a bucket full of ice-cold Ultra. Michelob Ultra. Superior light beer.
Enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2026 Anheuser-Busch. Michelob Ultra. Registered light beer. St. Louis, Missouri. Must be 21 plus to order alcohol. Alcohol available only in select markets.
Study
and play
come together on a Windows 11 PC. And for a limited time, college students get
the best of both worlds.
Get the Unreal College Deal. Everything you need to study and play with select Windows 11 PCs. Eligible students get a year of Microsoft 365 Premium and a year of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with a custom color Xbox wireless controller. Learn more at windows.com/student offer. While supplies last. Ends June 30th. Terms at aka.ms/collegepc.
This is what everyone's talking about.
Everything's on the table.
This is what champions come to take. This is what everyone came to see.
And the slam!
No do-overs. No second chances. No more Mr. Nice Guy. This is winner take all. And it's all happening now on the home of the NBA Finals. Don't miss it. June 3rd on ABC and the ESPN app.
Hello and welcome back to the Cardiff Central podcast. Cardiff's 2025-26 season came to a close on Saturday as the Blue and Blacks fell to defeat against the Stormers in the URC quarter-final. We'll be going over whether there was any way for Cornel van Zyl's men to escape Cape Town with a victory, plus a review of the campaign as a whole, and the barely coveted Cardiff Central podcast awards are handed out. Joining me on the podcast this week, we've got Fraser Stroud. Fraser, how are you?
Pretty low energy. I just rewatched a bit of the match today, and it was a bad idea.
Yeah, that's probably not the wisest thing before coming on. Andrew Fordy, how are you?
Yeah, good. In a similar boat to Fraser, I did rewatch the game today, which I think I turned it off with 10 minutes to go, so kind of sums up the mood I'm in. But yeah, all good other than that.
Double disappointment for an Arsenal fan on Saturday, I'm assuming, as
yes.
well.
Yeah, not the greatest day I've had, but yeah, we move on.
We've got Steve Coombs. Steve, how are you?
Pretty good, pretty high energy. I've not been dwelling on Saturday too much and thinking back on what a fantastic season it's been.
That's what we like to hear on the season review. Unfortunately, we will have to start with Saturday's game, though. Stormers 44-21, Cardiff. Tense first quarter, but the deadlock was finally broken after Cam Winnett scored following a Jacob Beetham interception. There was 3 Stormers tries then, though, around a Kieran Azarati yellow card, which opened up a half-time deficit. The Blue and Blacks battled back with Tame Basham and James Botham going over either side of a Sasha Feinberg and Gomazulu score to keep us in touch, but once Javan Sebastian saw yellow and we went down to 13 men with uncontested scrums, the hosts pulled away in the last 15 minutes or so to secure the victory. Fraser, coming to you, what was your sort of general thoughts after Saturday's game?
I think my initial thoughts after the match were like frustration. I think I felt that the Stormers didn't really play that well, and they still, came out fairly comfortable winners. It was just a bit annoying that not that we didn't throw a punch, but I think the amount of penalties we conceded, and just the fact that we weren't really on point for every. If you concede that many penalties at the scrum and the maul, you got to be on point for every other aspect of the game, and I think we just weren't quite there in terms of our aerial game was a bit off. Our kicking wasn't great throughout, and we didn't capitalise on the chances we created. So it was a bit of a shame that we, didn't take those chances and kind of push them towards the end, because I feel like we had it in us to beat them. I don't think they're a world beating team, and they just ultimately it was the power and the scrum kind of that won it, and the penalties, and if you get 2 yellow cards, it makes it much harder. Going down to 13 with that bizarre rule I didn't know existed didn't help, obviously. But yeah, I think overall I was just a bit frustrated, and then their pre-match comments and stuff was really disrespectful. I don't like them as a team, really. They're quite niggly and just they're not a nice team to play against. I don't wish them well for the next match. So yeah, just a bit disappointed. But overall, obviously we had a great season. But yeah, I don't think we showed up as we could have done on Saturday.
Fordy, your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, just very tough to take. I thought we did show some very good signs, like especially with ball in hand, we seemed to kind of make meters quite easily, especially like deceiving them. But we struggled to get a lot of ball in hand throughout the game. I think that was the biggest issue, especially with kind of the platform they had from the scrum and the aerial game. So yeah, really tough to take. I think it was always going to be a tough task, and I think they learned more lessons from losing to us 2 weeks ago than we learned from beating them. So kind of bit of a struggle then going away to them there, but just a silver lining. It was quite nice to watch my team in a URC playoff match, so that was nice. Just wish it ended a little bit better.
Steve?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you just got to say we'll be beaten by the better team on the day. I think Stormers were the better team on the day. They were niggly, that's true. There were a few instances that I was disappointed with picked up. I think on another day they would be picked up. But I think if you want to watch your team playing regularly in big games like that, that's the sort of thing that is going to happen. So yeah, I mean, immediately after the game, very disappointed. But I think a few people have said, well, we've now seen the sort of standard we need to try and reach consistently. And, I think ultimately it's been a really good season and we can kick on from here.
Fraser, I wonder, just in the dressing room after the game, whether you think the players might have been a little bit disappointed that they didn't sort of fire like every shot they could have, whether it was like they might look at it and think, oh, we just weren't like 110% going at it for the entire game, and that there were periods where we were just so under the pump we literally couldn't do anything.
Yeah, I think they might feel a little bit frustrated on occasion because they were like we said, we made some breaks in attack. We like created meters, and it was just we weren't able to capitalize on those breaks. And there was some good pieces of play. We had possession in their half, and when we didn't make the most of them. And I don't know what you couldn't really do much about the scrum. I guess that's something we're gonna have to work on moving forward in the future to address that problem. But I feel like maybe they would kicking themselves about a few things, like the kick from Johan Lloyd is a bit silly, and conceding soft points there. Maybe the try they scored when it got bumped off. I think there were a couple of occasions throughout the match where we weren't quite up to the standard that I think we've set ourselves previously for the rest of the season, and didn't quite meet that. So yeah, I can see them being a little bit frustrated in the dressing room and kind of feeling they've left a bit out there. But that being said, it was in the end it was a fairly comfortable victory. And watching it back today, it did feel a bit. I was less in the motion of it, a bit more objective, and we were just under the pump for a lot of that game. You can't say fairer than that, really.
For the Fraser touched on it briefly there, but for the flip side to the attack was that we've spoken quite a bit on the pod over the last few weeks about how defensively we've been right up there in the league, and I think they probably will be frustrated that there was a couple of soft scores given up there. Even though the Stormers were on top, we sort of folded a little bit easily at times.
Yeah, it's definitely frustrating compared to our defensive performance against them 2 weeks ago. But I don't think we were really going to be able to kind of replicate that, because that was almost like the perfect defensive performance to an extent. But we looked out on our feet at certain times during the game. I think particularly during that kind of middle of the first half and middle of the second half. And yeah, unfortunately, Johan Lloyd's crossfield kick didn't come off. I can see the kind of intent there because we just intercepted the ball and there probably was something on, but it just didn't come off on that occasion. Maybe it's something that Callum Sheedy would have kind of pinpointed a bit better if he was on the pitch, but that's just unfortunate, especially in that stage of the game. But as well, kind of Stormers have such great players, particularly on kind of counter attack or open play. And when you lose in the aerial game, it's inevitably like that. Willem's assist to, I think, was it Leyland's ass? It's unfortunate that Winnett gets bumped off there, but that is just a ridiculous try, and it's such a kind of momentum blow because it was just before Dan Thomas made that amazing try-saving tackle, and yeah, not ideal, but I think it's something that they'll certainly learn from going into games next season to kind of ensure that after a kind of brilliant defensive play like that, that they don't then concede a soft try immediately after.
Steve, I have to touch on the refereeing slightly, just because that equalising try early on, the first try the Storm was scored by Andre Hugo Venter. I mean, it definitely doesn't cross the line from any angles that I've seen. I suppose the question is, how does that happen? And also, how much of an impact does that going over there have on the game? It's not just 7 points off, I guess, is it? Because if we stay in the lead, then there's a different mindset to how you're playing.
Yeah, I mean, I think you probably don't want to get too bogged down in talking about refereeing decisions, because there's always going to be, the odd wrong decision in a game of rugby, because it's a complicated sport. There again, there are decisions where you look at it and think, how the hell has that been given? Is the TMO at lunch? And yeah, I don't understand how that try was given. It's clearly short, and it probably did have a big effect on the momentum of the game. That said, when we went ahead, that was against the run of play. We could quite easily have conceded there. I think if we were going to win that game, it probably would have involved. We had a couple of line breaks, 22 entries very early in the game. There was that McNally went through, and we didn't quite finish off that opportunity. Ewan Lloyd made a fantastic break. No one was with him. I think if we were going to win, then one or two of those opportunities needed to be converted, because I think what might have happened then is you start to see the Stormers panic a little bit, try to force things, and start blaming each other, and then the psychic energy of the game would have been flowing our way. And yeah, that non-try then sort of firmly put the ball in their court. But I think really we got to look at ourselves for the game, and we didn't, take all the chances. And to win a game like that, you got to take all, the chances that you make.
When you need to build up your team to handle the growing chaos at work, use Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It gives your job post the boost it needs to be seen and helps reach people with the right skills, certifications, and more. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hiring hero? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
Fraser, another part of Cardiff's game, which we've spoken about quite a lot in recent weeks on the podcast, is aerial work, and it's been very good largely over this sort of final part of the season. We didn't win the Battle of the Skies, I think it's fair to say, on Saturday. The Stormers were fairly dominant in that regard. I guess, what is Cardiff's plan B? Do they obviously have a plan B when they can't get territory in that way, and especially, is emphasised on Saturday by just the lack of scrum as well. What do we go to when we can't get hold of that?
I'm not sure. I mean, the aerial game is such a weird one, because it's so touch and go if it works or not, and like a tap down could go one way or the other, or it could be a knock on or not. And I think it's just those instances just went against us, and Moles are taking possession in front of the ball, that kind of stuff. It's kind of hard to say that the game plan didn't necessarily work, as opposed to just we didn't execute it properly. And in terms of a plan B, I'm not sure what a plan B is, because I don't necessarily associate the team entirely with we're an aerial team who get possession that way. I think we've got the capacity to play in different ways, and we can move the ball, and the short passes into contact and that kind of stuff. And I remember Teddy, when Teddy was playing, he was brilliant at that, being that second playmaker and doing this, going to the line, passing it off. I think that really works for us, and we are good at that. So I do think we have the flexibility to play more ball in hand and not have to rely on box kicking or completable kicks. So I'm not too worried about the fact that we don't have a plan B in inverted commas. I think we are a flexible team, and I just think unfortunately, that when we did kick, it just didn't pan out. Yes, like Saturday, and they were better than us in the air. And it's like sometimes that does happen.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the quality of the kicking was actually all right. You like Moldo kick quite well. It's just when you come up against somebody like Damien Willemser in that sort of mood and that sort of
Yeah,
form, I kind of think you kind of just shrug your shoulders and go, "Yeah, fair play. There's a reason he's like a multiple cap Springbok, I guess."
yeah.
Yeah, I mean
His
that's the context you got to put it in, isn't it? I
yeah,
mean, their fullback is a top fullback.
Yeah.
yeah. His offloading is mental. Like his ability to just constantly move it around his head like an octopus kind of thing. Just chooses when to offload. It's nuts.
Um, 40, there was a bit of chat. I watched it, the fan zone at the Arms Park, and there was a bit of chat around me and on social media afterwards a little bit as well about whether Cornel van Zyl should have made the move to replace Kieran Azarati with Javan Sebastian permanently after the yellow card. Azarati had a bit of a horror sort of 35 minutes or so before being sent to the sin bin. Would that have made any difference in your mind? Is that worth doing, or would it have just been as you were, but with somebody else in tight head?
In hindsight, absolutely, because it would have prevented Azarati being injured, and then that whole 13-man saga wouldn't have happened. But it's a difficult one because a couple of weeks ago, I think Sebastian started and he struggled quite a lot, and there seemed to be a little bit more stability when Azarati came on then in the second half. I think that was the thinking there. And you feel at that point, Azarati's only played about, was it 31, 32 minutes. So you think you can still get a bit more out of him. But yeah, I can certainly see merits in it, but I'm not sure how much of a difference it would have made because as much as Azarati was struggling, I think Sebastian was struggling as well. And we were pretty outmuscled in that department. But yeah, with the nature of that whole 13-man saga, it would have made life a lot easier had Azarati not got injured then, having come off permanently for Sebastian, because I think that I think we lost fair and square anyway, but with that 13 men on the pitch, something like 12 points in it at that point. And you think if you can get a quick try here, there could be a chance. But with 13 men, that was game over, unfortunately. And that's exactly what happened.
And I mean, it's probably not the right place to get fully on soapbox about this, but I just find that a bizarre rule, really, where like it's a yellow card for a technical offence against Sebastian in the second half. Azarati's clearly injured, and then you're basically double punished essentially for the yellow
I think
card.
it came out of French rugby, didn't it? I think they started doing it in their league where they're completely obsessed with scrimmaging, and any attempt to avoid full scrimmaging needs to be punished. I think it's a French thing originally, but yeah, it does seem a little draconian, doesn't it?
I can see it for, if there's two injuries, which it still feels a bit harsh, but you're covering that off then. But I just think, or if the card is for foul play and then there's an injury as well, because you can deliberately foul play. But if it's like an obvious technical offence, which Sebastian was, he doesn't. It's just he's the wrong player in the wrong time there. Basically, it could be any of our players taking that yellow card. So, yeah, I'm not sure there is a perfect solution to that issue necessarily, but this one feels particularly harsh, especially when it goes against you away in South Africa. Steve, we mentioned on the pod last week when we were picking the team that there was a couple of these players who were sort of on the cusp of being fit. The likes of Teddy Williams, Alex Mann, Mason Grady didn't make the squad on the day, despite being in South Africa and out warming up. So you assume if there'd been an injury warming up, they would have been chucked in there. Easy to say in hindsight, I guess, but would rushing the likes of them back have made actually any difference on Saturday? Or is it we would have needed to sign a couple of massive South African type fives, maybe the Stormers type five to make it work?
I mean, it certainly would have made a difference. I mean, I think in both games against the Stormers, they've kind of taken charge in the last 20 minutes or so, or had the better of the game towards the end of the match. And I think a lot of the reason for that is they've got more on the bench. They're bringing on players like Mo Rat, who's I think is actually captain South Africa from the second row, and obviously in the first game we didn't even have a second row option. Both games we had Evan Lloyd covering the back row. And yeah, I thought he did particularly well in the home game, but he's a hooker unless I don't know, maybe there's a long-term plan to make him more of a utility, which would be interesting. But I think if we had Alex Mann, who is a fantastic player, coming off in the last 20 minutes, that would have made a big difference. I don't know how far away those players were from being fit, whether it's a case of them being sort of 80% fit and you don't want to risk them. And I suppose there's also the fact that the team did well in the home game, did very well indeed, despite the players missing. And if you're Van Ziel, you probably don't want to tinker with that too much. But yeah, certainly if you had 100% fit Teddy Williams and Alex Mann available to come off the bench in the last 20 minutes, that would have made an appreciable difference.
Man would have definitely got Evan Roos sent off in some way.
You sort of hope for the Stormers to sign Evan Etzebeth to to have that face off once again. We need to see that happen again.
I think they've signed every other Springbok for next
That's
season.
true. Yeah. I think they are actually linked with Etzebeth as well.
Probably.
So, yeah.
Everyone's getting out of the Sharks, that's for certain anyway. Fraser, just to finish on a sort of positive point then, I thought James Botham was excellent again on Saturday in a losing cause, and I just wonder whether we talk enough about just how good he is, really. There should be like a recurring week segment on the pod of just James Botham was excellent again, wasn't he?
You should have one of those websites. It's like, is James Botham still playing well? It just says yes every day. Yeah, no, he's brilliant. He's a quality player. He's just got the attitude perfectly right. Like he must contribute a lot in the dressing room and just on the pitch in terms of his outlook and his like focus on the game, because he showed that playing for Wales when we've been rubbish. He still had that never say die attitude and really puts everything on the line. And he's obviously a quality player, and we talked about it last week or like a couple of weeks ago, just in every facet. He can make yards. His try was good, short range kind of stuff. He's got good hands. He's good, athletic. He's quite quick. He's just got everything, and he always puts in 8 out of 10 performance basically every time he puts on the jersey. And I thought Basham was also really, really good. He again built on what he's been showing last few games, and it was excellent. His try was great, that step, and then he's making more yards now. I think he's picking the right gaps and changing direction at the right times. He's really kind of growing into himself as a player, I think.
Absolutely, and congratulations to James Botham and his wife on the news of their baby as well, due soon. No pressure on that child, but great-grandfather, England cricket legend, professional footballer, grandfather, professional rugby player, father, professional rugby player, mother, Wales hockey international, I think Botham's wife is. So, yeah, I mean, if you're not into sport, then it might be up for adoption quite quickly, I think, in that family. Any more on the Stormers game in particular? No, all good. I think one to probably write off quite quickly at the end of what was an otherwise good season. We will get on to looking at the season as a whole a bit later in the pod. I just wanted to say that, as I mentioned, I was at the fan zone on Saturday, and excellent event. Good stuff from the club and from Root Media to get that up with the big screen. Loads of people there. I think they probably made a good wedge of cash as well for the clubhouse. The only thing I would say is, in typical Cardiff fashion, it wasn't 100% brilliantly done, because the the big screen outside was about 45 seconds behind the clubhouse TVs inside. So you heard a cheer come from inside and then had to wait 45 seconds to find out exactly what had happened on the screen. But no, it was very, very good event, and they managed to keep hold of the weather for it as well. Right. On to a bit of news then. Before the game last week, Cardiff announced 2 new contracts. Dan Thomas and Johan Mulder have both signed up. Mulder confirmed as a long-term. There wasn't even a piece on the website for Dan Thomas's contract yet, I don't think. So we'll wait to see exactly what the wording on that is. But yeah, good to keep hold of them. There's some stuff in the news as well. Sam Scott, the Bristol tight head, formerly of Cardiff pathway, but now ended up at Bristol, has been linked with a loan move back to Cardiff for next season, sort of in a similar vein to that which we saw Johan Emmanuel and Ian Davis come in from Bath. So we'll keep an eye on that one. And also Johnny Goodridge, our current backs coach, has been linked with the vacant Wales skills coach role, which I think they're interviewing for in the last week or so. So we may find out in the next week or two before the camp properly gets going whether he's going to head up to the test team or not. And then finally, Lloyd Williams officially retired on the weekend, his final game being the English Championship win for Worcester Warriors. They beat Bedford on Saturday in an excellent game. So a fine way for him to bow out, where he's become very popular at Worcester, I think, as well in his time there. Fordy, anything catch your eye there in that news? Contracts, signings, and anything in particular?
Just delighted about Dan Thomas and Johan Mulder staying more than anything, because I think they're both absolute workhorses who just always graft, put in solid performances. I know Mulder doesn't usually play 80, but Dan Thomas, whenever he plays, particularly as recently, he's just been an absolute nuisance. But I think more importantly, they're two players who are available all throughout the season. Like, neither are international players, sadly, for Dan Thomas, because I think if he was given a crack for Wales, he'd take it with both hands quite well. But two great players to have available for us for the future.
Steve, I wonder, just on the Johnny Goodridge link to the test team, is this something we should sort of get used to being WRU owned now, or is it more linked to the fact that with Jockey and Danny there, they seem to know everybody linked to Cardiff Rugby Club, so they're all mates and they'll end up signing for the test team in the end anyway?
Before I go into that, can we just mention what a crap website ruck.com is? Because I'm sure it wouldn't surprise me at all if Dan Thomas was already under contract for next season. They just had to rush it out because there been this speculation based on a clearly AI-generated headline from ruck.com saying he was going back to Bristol, which is blatantly someone saying, ChatGPT, can you please summarize this interview since Simon Thomas and create it into a new article for me? And it's come out with a completely spurious headline. No one should engage with ruck.com. Absolutely rubbish website. Anyway, Johnny Goodridge. Yeah, I mean, I think it's rather than simply being WRU owned, there's going to be something in the link with Matt Sherratt, because clearly they work well together. They've worked well together in the past. So if Wales are looking for that additional back skills coach, he's an obvious name to look at. It would obviously give us a problem, but if he did go with Wales, but there again, maybe it's also an opportunity, because we do need to bring in someone to add to the backs coaching. So if we're looking for two coaches rather than just one, it possibly gives us an opportunity to really freshen it up. I think if you're giving our attacking game a grade for this season, probably would be a B rather than an A. There's been times this season where it's really not been as smooth as we would have hoped for. I think we only scored roughly, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we scored roughly the same number of tries we did 2 seasons ago, which I think puts it into context, possibly. So yeah, if he does go, I'm not saying I would want him to go, but if he does go, it gives us an opportunity.
Yeah, and like we've mentioned a few times on the pod this year that we're not convinced by the attack, but I think it is worth saying that he was obviously the skills coach with Jockey last year, and skills-wise, we definitely improved over the course of that season. So if that's the role he's very good at, and he works well with Jockey.
And he clearly has a very nice line in penalty moves.
Yes. Yeah, that's true as well. Yeah, he's definitely got the first phase and tap penalty stuff off to a good start. But yeah, we'll see. There was also mention of Lee Halfpenny in that article as well. But I mean, at this moment in time, he has left Cardiff. I suppose really, we don't know exactly what he's doing yet. So we'll wait to see on that one. Hopefully, we'll get a few announcements in the coming weeks to confirm what the coaching staff's going to look like. Right, at this point of the pod then, if you're enjoying what you're listening to, please feel free to like and subscribe on whatever podcast platform you're on. Leave us a review as well. If you're watching us on YouTube, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of podcasts going out as the club season starts to wind down, but the test arena gets up and running towards the end of this month. That's the beauty of Cardiff season going on so long. It's not so long to wait until the international rugby kicks off. Usually it feels like next season already by the time that gets going. So, but yeah, plenty of stuff coming out all the time in that regard. On to our final parts of this week's pod then. We shall start with the Cardiff Central Podcast Awards. We shortlisted on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and the polls have been out on social media. We've got 4 winners to hand out, for which they will receive nothing but the adulation of the fans. Young Player of the Year was already decided. There was no poll necessary. It's just going to be Tombo, and he got 110% of the vote somehow. So that's an obvious one. Then we had the tricky titled Most Improved / Breakout / Star Player that we weren't quite expecting to be a star player, which it doesn't mean they used to be crap, but does just mean they were good this season. And there was some significant clamour for Rory Thornton to win it, but I think based off the last few weeks, Jacob Beetham stole that award after some excellent performances on the wing in the second half of the season. And there's a similar amount of, I think, recency bias in the Best New Signing award as well, which we certainly felt Javan Sebastian had pretty much sewed up, but Tame Basham snuck in after his excellent performances from number 8 after the last few weeks. And then Player of the Year was, well, I thought it would be a closer vote, but Dan Thomas won it very comfortably, to be fair to him, and difficult to argue with that. I think it was a hot debate for who actually made the shortlist. There was plenty of options there, but I think after, again, a bit of recency bias, the last few weeks and the media stuff surrounding him, Dan Thomas was a comfortable winner of that award. Right, season review time then, / a little bit of a look ahead to next season. I asked for 3-word thoughts this week on just the season as a whole, and there was a mix of views on it. Some looking back on what might have been at parts of the season. Reese said Munster and Scarlets was his 3 words. Sid said win away games after Cardiff only won 1 game outside of Wales this season. But there was a bit more surprise about how we did, perhaps, from Dave, who said better than expected. Robert said exceeded all expectations. And then a bit of positivity from Stephen, who said team got better. Rob described it as a big step forward. Ben went with progress. And Rob said trajectory continues upwards. And finally, Gareth looked at slightly ahead with first 5 investment, and Tony of this parish just summed it up with "We are massive." We made the quarterfinals. Fraser, looking back on the season as a whole, I've asked you guys to come up with what grade would you give Cardiff season. We're going on the old-fashioned letters. I know they do numbers now in school. I've not quite got my head around them. So, what grade would you give Cardiff?
I've given, well, I thought a B plus, or I think that's a 7 in modern day terms. Yeah, B plus. I think I'm really, well, obviously very delighted that we got to the playoffs for the first time. We had some amazing performances throughout the season. There were some, obviously, games that we'd be disappointed that we didn't get more points out of, and there's definitely room for improvement. That was not like a perfect season, and I feel like we can build on it, which is exciting. So yeah, it's like a B plus. Give it back to them and be like, if you touch up a few things, you can get an A kind of thing. I think they've done well, and I'm excited to see where we can go, and I just hope we continue that upward trend. So yeah, B plus was my thought on it.
40.
Yeah, I went for a B plus as well, because my view was, as great as it was to get in the playoffs, I think based on last season, we kind of needed to get that under our belt. I'd have pushed it to an A if we'd got a home playoff quarter final. So if we'd finished top 4, I'd have pushed that to an A. But yeah, I agree with Fraser. I think there's some things we still need to work on, and I can't reward a season where we lost to Scarlets at home in the way we did with an A. So yeah, B plus for me.
Steve?
I'm going to say, I suppose the first thing is, because we were just 1 point off the playoffs last year, it would have been a disappointment if we hadn't got in there this year. But I'm going to give it an A minus rather than a B plus, so that's 7.5. The reason for that is, I think in the context of losing the coach, what was it, 4 days for the start of the season, not really replacing him with Dan Fish coming in part-time, and the squad being really, really down to the bare bones at various points of the season, not least right at the end of it. I think in the context of all that, you've got to you got to sort of like give everyone a big pat on the back for a job well done. I think they took a season which could have become a bit of a disaster and turned into a success. So on that basis, an A minus can't be a full A or an A plus, because probably once again a bit disappointing in Europe, and against the Pontana big day out game. But yeah, I'm going to give the team an A minus for this season.
Fair. I was thinking A minus as well. Just if like it's a tricky balance, isn't it, between wanting to see a bit more, but also so rewarding. I think where we have got to after the last couple of years as well, and it's but yeah, all sort of in that ballpark. We're just short of giving it a proper A, I think, and how we can take those next steps we shall discover in a minute. But Fraser, looking back on the season, what was the high points of the season for you?
I was thinking I really enjoyed the win against Leinster at home. I don't know, that felt for me like a game where we showed, because I mean the score flattered Leinster, I think, and we just seemed in control in that match and just knew what we were doing, and the way we closed it out. It was just a really classy, mature performance, and I felt it like really exemplified what levels we can hit, and that on our day we can beat the best in the league. We obviously did against the Stormers as well at home. You know, you can always um, caveat that, but I just thought came out of that match really, really impressed by us, and it kind of just solidified everything I hoped that we were kind of reaching towards and moving towards, and it kind of came to fruition in that match. And then we proved it on other occasions, but I think that for me personally, that was the game that I was like, yeah, okay, we've come a long way, and this, I can see where we're going, and that we're here to stay in this kind of level and then build on that. So yeah, I think that match was the one that really stood out for me.
Bordy, your high point?
I think, yeah, Stormers and Leinster have to be up there, but for me, I think the Ospreys game was huge because we often get bullied by them in a like pack battle, and to win that game, especially when it looked quite ropey towards the end, I think was massive. And kind of the vibes after winning that game were just immaculate. So yeah, that was my high point. But I'd give an honourable mention to I think the Edinburgh game at home where we kind of got that penalty near the end. That was a game we probably would have lost a couple of seasons ago. So I really enjoyed that one as well.
Steve?
I'm tempted to give it for the last 15 minutes against the Scarlets away, because they say that sign of a good team is to play poorly and still win, and boy, were we crap that day. But the last 15 minutes were obviously highly entertaining, and I've watched back those 15 minutes several times and really enjoyed it every time. So I'm tempted to go with that one, but I think you got to give it to the Stormers home game, because I think we've been ticking along pretty well for a couple of seasons now, but we hadn't had that kind of statement win. And possibly beating Leinster at home will be in the category of the statement win, but you could sort of say about that one, oh well, it's during the Six Nations window, Leinster are missing quite a few players, blah blah blah. But I think the Stormers game, where they're basically at full strength and we are missing a lot of players, and we play like that and did that to them, I think that's a statement win. That's yeah, where those guys kind of win. So yeah, that has to be the season highlight, I think.
Yeah, I think those are certainly ones up there. I think as a curveball option, a random game that I really enjoyed was the Stade Francais away game, which sounds bizarre because we got hammered in it, but just for reasons of seeing how many young players came into that team and really impressed just on a this is exciting for the future type basis. Like we know we've got a good squad now and it's developing, but it's nice to see those players who we've seen in the rags quite a lot and we've seen coming through age grade rugby step up into the first team in a real tough place to go, whether they're full strength or not, away at Stade Francais, and look like they belong there. I think that was a massive moment in terms of just getting excited for the next few years as well as what we can achieve this season. So plenty to look forward to there. Fraser, I suppose the flip side to that is of the high points is whether it's a performance or a result or just generally this season, where could we have improved to either push up into that, that top four and get a home playoff or in other competitions perhaps?
Well, I mean, yeah, the Scarlets match has already been mentioned at home. That was kind of bizarre that we didn't win that. The amount of possession we had, and like it was it was like in our hands to win that, and we somehow effed it up. That's a pretty obvious area for improvement. Yeah, the Munster game away, like we almost came away with a win there, but I think that was still early in the season, and I don't think I didn't know where we were in terms of like where's actually our ceiling. So I was like, oh, we got some points away from home at Munster, but in hindsight, you're like, we should have got points there. Like we should have won that game. So yeah, I guess those two in particular, but and in the Ospreys game, we obviously got fairly soundly beaten away from home. So I think it's those games that you'd expect us to win. Is to win those games. Now we're like, we know where we're at, and there's those teams that we should probably put away. Someone like the Scarlets and Ospreys, again, no offense to either of them, but we should be putting them away and getting the victory there. And weren't able to do that for whatever reason. Welsh Derby's a little bit different. It's emotion in there. It's not, it's not the same as other games, but I still think we should be going into those games and expecting to come out with the wins. And if we had, we might have got a home quarter final or something like that. And if we weren't that far away from that, so it's just like pushing on, getting those wins that we should be getting, and then I think we'd be in the shout for getting a home quarter final. That'd be so at Arms Park playing against whoever it is. That'd be an amazing occasion. So yeah, I think that's where we need to improve.
Yeah, we make fun of the Welsh Shield and the hubcap and all that, but like if you're gonna be the top Welsh team and work hard to beat teams outside of Wales, you may as well beat teams inside of Wales on the way through and make life easier for yourself, isn't it? I suppose, and yeah, you get to lift that prestigious shield at the same time, and probably you're dinner off it that night and then give it back, or I don't know how it works, but Wardy, anything different come to mind for you for where we could improve?
I think of games like Bulls and Glasgow away, where I'm not naive enough to think we could necessarily go there and beat them, but kind of stay in the fight a bit more in games like that. Obviously, we'll have them at home next season, so it's kind of not the same like for like comparison. But I think with South Africa away next year, I believe it's Lions and Stormers away. It'd be nice to kind of put a bit of a dent in there, and then likewise try and get something. Like the overall point is to win more games away from home, but I think particularly Edinburgh away next year should be a game to really target. And if we could put in a shift against a team like Leinster away as well, it would, as great as the win this season was, that would be even more impressive to beat them away. Although we did do that in pre-season, so there's definitely precedent there.
As my follow-up question to that would be, does that entail getting better at playing our way on the road, or does that entail learning how to win differently when you're playing away from home?
I'd say, probably learning how to play a bit differently. I think sometimes when we're away and in games like that, I think our discipline lets us down a little bit, and there's a few kind of needless errors we make that I think back as well. Not that this is the best example, but I feel like that extra away game in the Challenge Cup, kind of irrelevant in a way, but there was a lot of kind of shoveling shit at times where we didn't seem to kind of have any kind of order going on at all. And it was kind of then that we didn't have like a platform to build on at any point. And I think not so much like a plan B, but you need to kind of learn how to get up in some of these teams' faces. And if that involves being niggly and stuff like that, then I'm all for it, because I think being at the Arms Park, the crowd gets behind the team so effectively, and it's kind of understanding that you need something a little bit different away from home, because you're not going to have the crowd on your back there. And I wonder if that's kind of where maybe the discipline errors lie sometimes. I think there's maybe an expectation at home to kind of not concede a sloppy penalty, because I think the crowd reaction would probably say it all. Whereas when the crowd's on your back, the pressure that comes from it away from home probably leads to penalties. And yeah, I think it's probably trying to get a different approach to games like that going forward would be a nice improvement.
Experience a membership that backs your business journey with American Express Business Platinum. When you pay with membership rewards points for all or part of an eligible flight booked with a qualifying airline through Amex Travel, you can get 35% of those points back, up to 1 million points back per calendar year. American Express Business Platinum. There's nothing like it. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum.
Steve, any areas to improve on that you think of?
Not areas as such. There's a lot of talk about winning more away games to get like those extra points. I look at it slightly differently. I'd like to see us be more convincing at home. I mean, it's entertaining to kind of win with a last minute penalty or the last minute interception try, but I'd quite like to see us be more convincing at home and pick up more 5-point wins at home. I think that might actually be the next step, is kind of going out and dominating a few teams and not just making Cardiff Arms Park to be a difficult place to win for the away team, but a difficult place to not get your ass kicked. I think that's the next step, is just going out and giving teams a bit of a tuning at the Arms Park, making it genuinely quite scary for teams. And we're heading in that direction, but that's where I'd like to see us step it up a bit. A few more high scoring wins at home.
Yeah, links into the word I just wrote next to it was just attack. I don't even think it's the stalemate. I think our attack has gone back slightly this year, and there's the obvious reason for that in Jockey departing and the kind of up in the air nature of the attack coaching throughout the season. But there's also maybe from the coaches, they maybe just need to review if there was an over focus on some other areas, perhaps, which in the long run isn't a bad thing to get us, up to being one of the best defenses and like take the Stormers game away. Generally, our set piece has been pretty good this year. I would argue it's been sort of a top half set piece, but we haven't quite flowed in attack, and there's also some personnel differences there as well. I don't think we ever really got to grips with what we wanted to do with that outside centre position, when Harry Millard was fit, but certainly when he wasn't fit, there was some big issues there. But
I mean, it's like with outside centre, we forget quite quickly how important Ray Lilo was to us.
Yeah, big time.
And although Harry Millard did a great job of replacing him, we've still not really replaced Ray Lilo. He was so central to what we did.
Yeah, and that would be a big area of focus for me going into sort of preseason next year. Well, I suppose firstly the coaches need to decide who they want there and what sort of profile they want there. And, they've signed LaRue Milan. We know he can play in a couple of positions. Is he the answer? We've got Millard there, whether he goes back to the wing and whether Grady comes inside or Beetham comes inside. But I think they need a proper depth chart there, because at the moment it sort of feels like who's available and you're just going to slot in there and largely hope for the best more than anything. So I think that would be where I would look at as where we could definitely improve for next year. And that links in then to putting teams away and racking up some big points and not having to leave it down to, we might have just won one more game than this team, but being like, no, we're comfortably better points difference and tries for, because looking at the table this year with our tries for and points for total, it's pretty low considering our league position, certainly.
I think losing Teddy's early in the season, he's such a he really is a pivotal player for that attack, because he goes in, he's the playmaker in the forward pack. He just makes decisions when to do a crash ball, like tip-offs. His tip-offs are amazing, the timing of it. I think losing him is pretty substantial in terms of planning anything, because he seemed to be the guy who would make those decisions and have that mindset, like, right, this is how we're going to play this situation. And without him, McNally and Thornton and not great second rows, but they're not the same player, and like not having him, I think, was pretty significant. I mean, Mann kind of plays that role as well, but I think hopefully when Teddy is back, our attack might go back to being a little bit slicker and more effective.
Yeah, very, very, very true. Like but you can't have too many of those excellent link players and good handling guys, especially in a team like Cardiff where they're so crucial because we're probably not just going to run over the top of many teams that we come up against. Moving on then to a question of the next few weeks and what we'd like to see. There was a few questions like this that came in ahead of the pod. I'll read Ben's out, which was, do you anticipate that our recruitment for next season is done? Or do you think there are another couple of sign-ins to come? And some people ask specifically around the Type 5, I suspect, on the back of the last two games that we've played. The answer, as far as I'm concerned, is that it's not done. There will be a couple of new faces. Whether they'll be the big Type 5 brute replacements that people are necessarily thinking of is probably unlikely. I think we are still in a position where finances are not flush. Yeah, they're better than they were a couple of years ago, absolutely. But is there the budget there to go out and sign a really top second row or really top tight head? Probably not, and especially at this stage of the recruitment cycle where it's towards the end of that as well. So there's undoubtedly going to be new faces and there'll be some new contract announcements as well. But yeah, I'm not sure we're going to see the long sought after sort of major name that people are hoping for in engine rooms or down the spine of that pack necessarily. So the question was, Fraser, sort of what would you like to see over the next few weeks, whether it's something sorted, announced, something signed, players, coaches, off field? What's your one wish for the next few weeks before the tests get underway?
Yeah, I guess some clarity on the attacking, like if Goodridge is staying. I think is that has been, having Matt Sherratt leave so early in the season and like no planning for that. It's like that's not how you run a rugby club. Like you can't. I know you can't control who gets poached by who, but I think that there's got to be just a clarity of like this is our coaching setup starting next season. This is who we've got. And hopefully Wales won't take any of them before that point, but just have a clear, stable coaching setup because we haven't had that, and we are uncertain about who's the head coach. We know who the head coach is now moving forward, which is great. It's just knowing exactly who've got the roles in place. I think obviously maybe the next couple of weeks, maybe a bit longer, but I think having that established is really important. I think in a longer term, I think you guys mentioned it's that establishing the 13 situation and having a better depth. Because no offense to Jennings, but we shouldn't have been going into the Stormers match having him at 12. He's not really meant to be starting games. He's like a utility back, and it showed how much we were lacking in depth in that kind of centre situation. Well, not even depth, but knowing who's going to step in there. So Grady and Beetham, are they going to do that, or are we going to get Steph Emmanuel to play a more integral part in the team? It's I think we need to be clear as to what the plan is in terms of centres moving forward in that structure, because I think the rest of the team we could do with more players in second row and tight five. But I think we still got I could see if someone gets injured, I can see who's stepping in there. Whereas 13, 12, it started becoming we got put people in holes, square pegs and round holes kind of thing. Oh, Jennings can play 12, I guess. We don't really want him there, but whatever. I think it's having a bit more clarity and depth in that area would be really beneficial.
40, any wishes to see over the next few weeks?
I kind of echo a lot of what Fraser's saying, but I think specifically for me, I think you kind of need a 4-6 hybrid player to replace Ben Donnell. So I think it's been overlooked a little bit, in that second half of the season, how much we've missed a player like that. Do you think that away in South Africa, when both McNally and Knott got injured, Ben Donnell would have been a great player coming off the bench. Obviously, Evan Rees made his debut at Benetton away. It would have been great having someone like Ben Donnell like that. And I think if you get a player very similar to Ben Donnell in, it would save a lot of selection headaches that we've had this season. So I think something specific like that. But yeah, I think the classics are just some type 5 recruitment and, again, an outside centre potentially, or someone who can slot in there alongside Leroux, Milan. And likewise, kind of getting a proper idea of what the coaching setup is, who's here for the long run, especially if there's a plan in place if Johnny Goodridge does go off to Team Wales.
No, I think that 4-6 is a really good point, and I think that's somewhere where there probably is the money to go and recruit because your big, heavy, tight head lock, they command a lot of money in, particularly amongst French sort of circles. But yeah, there's plenty of 4-6 options out there. Donnell we picked up from Gloucester mid-season. I can't imagine we broke the bank to go and sign him necessarily, but in terms of value for money, we more than got value for money out of him and what he offered. And also, like, it's mad saying like, he's not quite the tight head lock because he was at the Arms Park on Saturday and he walked past me. He's a big bloke, like that is a large man, and it's mad that there's bigger guys out there that we could be chasing. But yeah, I think that's definitely an area where, well, we already knew we were linked to questions earlier in the recruitment window, and I'm sure that they are still in the market for that sort of player. Steve, anything on field, off field that comes to mind for you?
I mean, there is a lot that needs to be done off field. I mean, we've spoken about the coaching angle. We still don't have a chief executive. Things like that are important. I'd like to, I mean, it's kind of a boring point, but I'd like to see a bigger board. I mean, there's only four individuals on the board. Most of them are linked to the Welsh Rugby Union. I'd like to see a full independent board, just for the long-term planning for the club. But when it comes to on field, I agree. We definitely miss Ben Donnell. I think he was a very, very useful player for us, and it's a shame he's leaving. We certainly need to replace him. But I think next season, particularly because we're going to be playing Champions Cup, I think we're going to be needing even more depth in that back five of the scrum. If you look at Basham, I think Basham was outstanding the second half of the season. I think if he continues that form, he's going to be involved with Wales. In which case, even if we got Faletau there, he's going to have to be managed. So we're going to be, looking for another number 8, really. I think we could possibly even do with another second row on top of a Ben Donnell replacement. So probably not big names, probably not huge amounts of money being signed, although Ospreys fans assure me we've got a blank check to spend. But I think just adding bodies to the back five options. We've had bargains in the past. Let's hope we can continue recruiting intelligently like that. But yeah, there's an element of quantity over quality when it comes to recruiting for the back five at the moment.
Yeah, and I think they're going to have to dip into the Tinas to be a Johan Mulder well of sort of previously unknown players, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, there seem to be so many South African players who, for whatever reason, get overlooked by the 4 big sides. And you've also seen it with the Scarlets and the hooker's name I can't remember.
Van der Merwe.
It's possible to get bargain players from the Curry Cup. So if you can find some big second rows from the Curry Cup who've been overlooked, great.
Absolutely. A final question for me then, looking ahead to next season. I put it out on social media and there was some pretty sort of similar-ish responses around what is the sort of your hope/realistic expectation. And I didn't want just people to reply, finish top URC, win Champions Cup easy. So Paul said, build on our success this year and have a decent run in the Champions Cup. Rob wants us to be strong at home, but to target some away wins. Glenn just wants to give the cup a good go. And Gareth says, maintain top 6 and get out of the Champions Cup group, which it's so complicated. I don't know how you get out of the Champions Cup. I think you're just stuck in that league format forever, potentially. But can you still drop down to the Challenge Cup? You can you? Yeah. So maybe he wants to get out of the Champions Cup group and drop down to the Challenge Cup then as well. I don't know if that counts as ticking off Gareth's expectations or not. But Fraser, when you look ahead to 12 months in the future, I suppose, what might you be happy with as a finishing spot for next year?
I think I'd be happy, consolidating our spot in the playoffs. It really important. It means that it's like that everyone sees us as we are the Welsh team getting the playoffs. I think that's really important that we do that. Obviously, ideally a home playoff, but I'd still be satisfied with just getting in the playoffs again. I think we just need to consolidate that. And then in terms of the Champions Cup, I think it'd just be really fun to get a scalp or two, beat an English team at home or something. Don't hold my hat on progressing really far in the Heineken Cup or whatever it's called, Champions Cup. I wouldn't mind dropping down into like getting through the group stages, performing well, putting up a fight against teams away, getting a couple of scalps, and then just missing out on the knockouts. That'd be fine with me. I'd be happy with that, and I think it's mainly we're in there. Obviously, put up a fight if we get the wins and we get into the knockouts. That'd be superb. But I think that my main hope would be to re-establish ourselves, or just fundamentally establish ourselves. We are a playoff team in the URC. We're above the likes of Connor, and we are in that top 8, top 6, aiming for the home playoffs. Like, I think that's for me the most important thing to do.
Yeah, it's certainly something that we've seen the last 2 years. Ospreys and then Scarlets get into the URC playoffs and then experience like quite significant drop off then the following year. So it would certainly be an improvement on other Welsh sides who've gone before us. 4D, your 12 months hopes.
Yeah, in terms of the names leaving, there's not kind of huge guaranteed starters leaving. We pretty much have a lot of the kind of core squads remaining, and with Scott Seo and Leroux Milan coming in and potentially a few others, if they can add to that, you'd like to think that we can then push to get that playoff spot again next season. That would be my hope in 12 months' time. Not necessarily pushing for a home playoff spot. I think it would be great to go for that, but if we can just get the playoffs again next season, that would be brilliant. And then ruffle a few feathers in the Champions Cup, and whether that means if we lose every game but kind of shock every team that we play who expect a bit of a walkover, then I'm happy with that. And if ruffling a few feathers means us getting to the knockouts, then that's just an added bonus. Just, I think a couple of seasons ago when we were in the Champions Cup, although we did kind of probably surprise Bath a bit by staying as close into the game, I think a lot of those games we were quite comfortably second best, and we weren't going into those games expecting much, particularly the games against Toulouse and Racing. I'm a little bit more optimistic for it this time round if we're not too hampered by injuries, that we can probably give some teams a good game. That would be my hope to kind of reflect on this time in 12 months.
Yeah, just looking at this season's Champions Cup and sort of what it takes to get into, well, I think you come second bottom in your 6-team group, then you qualify for the Challenge Cup, and it seems to generally be sort of one win and then a couple of bonus points here or there, maybe, or 2 wins definitely gets you into the Challenge Cup. So it's not, you just got to not be the worst team in your pool essentially to progress into some sort of knockout there. Steve, your hopes?
I was looking at who from URC has qualified for Champions Cup and the playoffs for the past 3 seasons, and it's quite interesting because there's a clear top 5 in URC, right? It's Leinster, Munster, Stormers, Bulls, and Glasgow. They're in top 8 every year. They expect to be in there. They expect to be playing Champions Cup. And over the past 3 seasons, the other 3 teams in there has changed every year.
Okay.
So it's extremely difficult. I mean, basically, everyone other than Dragons or Zebra has been in the top 8 over the past 3 seasons at some point. It's really difficult to back it up. And I think possibly part of that is playing Champions Cup just puts more strain on your squad. But it would be a bit of a statement to back it up, just to back it up and stay in the top 8 the second season. And hopefully to kind of try to start making that top 5 into a top 6. Or hopefully replace Munster in that top 5, because they seem to have a few issues, although I'm sure they'll bind them out one way or another. That's kind of the hope probably over the next couple of seasons. But also, I think in Europe, make a statement, because every Welsh team that's been in there the past few seasons has been, had the odd brave moment, like us at home to Bath, but generally been also runs and been kind of written off. I'd like us to be the Welsh team that makes a bit of a statement in Europe. And hopefully, if we can take our home form and against some big teams and give them a bit of a shock, give them something they're not expecting, we can do that. So that's my big hope. I think next season is a big opportunity. I think there's optimism around the club, around the team, as as Andrew said, we haven't lost anyone we particularly wanted to keep. So we're sort of building on strength. I think the crowds are going to keep growing, so we've got a big chance of making another statement next year.
Yeah, and just to add on that squad front, I think not only are we're not losing too many, we're getting players in, but those young players again that we've talked about, Bowen, Emmanuel, Beetham, even like Teddy, Reece Barrett, they're another year older, so they're just going to get better. The squad is growing from within as well as what we're doing around recruitment and retention. So, yeah, I absolutely agree. I think to say that we need to get out of a Champions Cup group as well as progressing in the URC, that's going to be incredibly difficult because, as I mentioned, we do have more money now than we did a couple of years ago, but budget-wise, we're still very much towards the bottom of the league in European rugby. So, but if we go back-to-back playoffs, I think that's a real achievement, whether it's home or not. And then I suppose the progression there comes from how much closer can you get in that quarterfinal? Then can you even steal a win in an away quarterfinal if you were to make it to a Challenge Cup away round of 16 or a away quarterfinal in the URC? And we're sat here this time next year after that quarterfinal going, we were right in it and we lost by a kick, or we've managed to steal it in the last minute. It doesn't seem like much because there's only one difference in result necessarily, but I think that is actually a huge leap forward in terms of where we've come from. So yeah, I think the other thing to say is that the fixture list with the change in the Champions Cup, having that first game in the first block of fixtures prior to the autumn internationals, does present us a better opportunity of doing well in that. It means that that first game gets sucked up into that first run of 5 where we've been quite good in recent years, Cardiff. I think we've got off to a decent start generally. And then if you get a win or you get a few points in that game, you can decide how you tackle the remaining games there because there's just a one-off game going into the derbies. Then you could look at it and say, right, we'll fly into that. We'll play everyone through the derbies and then see how we're looking after Christmas, or we can say we'll rest people for that second game, go full into the derbies, go full into those last 2 games, knowing that probably the internationals are not going to play then in the 2 weeks before the Six Nations where we go to South Africa, and that our lead guys will get a rest there before going into the Six Nations. So yeah, it's in our hands as to how we tackle that, certainly. And plenty of excitement around what we could achieve. Hopefully, we'll see a bit of movement over the next few weeks in terms of just adding those final touches to the squad and sorting out the coaching staff so that when the players are back for pre-season, all is sorted. I won't necessarily hold my breath that that'll definitely happen because it's still Cardiff Rugby, of course. We are now owned by the WRU, not always famous organisations for getting stuff sorted ahead of time, but yeah, it is, the opportunity is absolutely there. Any more on next season generally, Steve?
I asked AI to predict what our Champions Cup opponents are going to be.
Oh, here we go.
And it came out with at home we're going to have Toulouse and Harlequins, and away we're going to be going to Claremont and Sale.
So Sale not so fun, but Claremont's good. Yeah, the Claremont would be a great trip. I am desperate for like a Claremont or a La Rochelle or a Bordeaux away, essentially. So I hope we don't get stuck with like Pau or somewhere where we've been quite a lot in recent years. But somewhere good away would be an excellent trip. Does it give any indication of how we do in those games?
Or? I haven't gone that far.
Oh, okay.
I've got fullrep.com asking ChatGPT for absolutely everything. But
Rugby Lift 2027 Champions Cup.
Toulouse at home would be good fun.
Yes, well, that would be a great occasion. Yeah, I think a nice Saturday afternoon against Toulouse at home would be excellent. Good stuff. Any more beyond that? All good. For us as a pod, then that will be our last regular programming of this season. We are still hoping to bring you 1 or 2 specials before calling it a day for the summer and putting our feet up. We'll go into some sort of pre-season training routine then and come back before next season. But just like I don't know if I get a chance in those podcasts to say, but thank you very much for listening and for interacting with us this season. It's much more fun when there's stuff coming in and stuff to debate from the listeners. So do feel free to keep that going next season. But until then, Fraser, thank you very much.
Cheers, Dan.
Cheers, 4D.
Cheers, Dan.
And cheers, Steve.
Cheers, Dan.
And thank you very much for listening. We shall catch you soon. Goodbye.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
I'm here on a job site with Tim, who owns his own electrical contracting business.
3 employees and 2 work trucks.
Tim traded up to Geico Commercial Auto Insurance. We're positively here where he needs us most.
They sure are.
With step-by-step help on all his insurance needs, all for shockingly low rates.
Shockingly low, huh?
It's just a little bit of electrician humour. Do you get it?
I got it.
You know, it feels like we have a real connection. All right, I'll stop.
Get a commercial auto insurance quote today at geico.com and see how much you could save. It feels good to Geico.